Namaste, Gina. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to me today on the podcast. This is where we talk about the habits of positive role models, and you're an amazing role models for everyone out there. I would like to say how I met Gina is when she walked in to Studio X, where my office is, and then she came in a wheelchair, and she stood up and gave an outstanding speech to all of us. And I was blown away by her values, her compassion, and the kind of work that she's doing. She's an international bestseller author, and then she's been inspiring people for more than 30 years. And without much ado, I would pass on the baton to Gina to please introduce yourself so that our viewers know more about you. Thank you again, once again. Namaste.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this. I started off life as a head teacher or a principal, well, as a teacher and then as a principal of a large school, and I was the principal for over 20 years. And I ran the school for the most part from a wheelchair, having had a serious ski accident. And there was a huge gift in that. And that gift was that I had to develop a way of helping people feel empowered and take radical responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for the whole team. The school was highly successful. We were on the best 100 schools in the country list twice, HMI's list.
That's amazing.
And for me, I'd like to think I would have developed that way of being anyway. But I'm honest enough to know that, necessity is the mother of invention. Right. And so it was a question of having to find a way and let go of control and lead in a very different, more enlightened way. And then since 2005, I've used that in my own business, working with individuals, helping them to lead their own life, and working with businesses, helping them to be more strategic and to get the best out of their people. And more recently, I started Genuinely You, which is a sister company to Gina Gardiner Associates, all online, again, all about empowerment and transformational enlightened leadership. I have a huge mission to positively impact on 1 million people in the next 3 years through the development of enlightened leadership.
That's amazing. That's so powerful. And then I'm so glad that that mission, I hope that'll come through. I'm sure together we can accomplish that, definitely. And if I were to ask you, what's the story behind Genuinely You? Why Genuinely You?
Because I think it's only when we are authentically, genuinely who we are meant to be, that we step into our true power. And when we are in our genuine power, it's not about having dominion over somebody else. It's not about me winning and you losing. When you are in your genuine power, you see the potential in others and you want to nurture that potential. It's about being your best self and recognizing that the best self of today is simply the foundation of the best self of tomorrow. We're card-carrying students the whole of our life, and it's about learning.
Yeah, and there's so much of social media going on, Instagram and the selfies, and then, copycat culture. And then it's so difficult to be genuinely you when you're so many influencers out there. And then you're trying to literally copy paste what's going on out in the world. How difficult is it for people to be themselves, really?
I think the issue is how to connect with yourself and with source, whether you call that God or you have a particular, it's not a religion-based thing for me. It is about recognizing that there's a power greater than ourselves. And it's about doing the inner work, recognizing that you are enough and creating a great relationship with yourself. Too many people give greater emphasis to the opinions of others and wanting to fit in.
Right.
Rather than doing the inner work to create a loving relationship with themselves, not indulgent, but loving relationship with themselves. And by doing so, step into their true power. And it's one of the reasons, I think, why there's so many people on antidepressants, so many people unhappy, depressed, unfulfilled, is because they are not being who they are designed to be. Their divine purpose is to be themselves rather than try to be somebody else.
Absolutely. And does that tie in with enlightened leadership? Because there's always this talk about conferences. There's so many leaderships, the alpha and the beta and so on. So what is the concept behind enlightened leadership, and how is it connected to genuinely you?
Well, enlightened leadership is all about leading yourself first.
Right.
Taking radical responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your words, your actions. So people talk about legacy, and they talk about a legacy when they die, that when I die, I want to leave my children, my house and my money, and I want to leave my mark on the world. What they forget is every word you speak, how you speak it, when you speak it, or whether you speak it at all, every action you take, or whether you don't take it, leaves a living legacy. So one small example. How often have you heard the word thank you? When you say something like the word thank you, you recognize the value of what somebody is doing for you, or you recognize the value of the person, you are leaving a loving legacy. If you speak harsh words, you are leaving a living legacy too. One's positive and one's negative. Right. But interestingly, many people are far more aggressive and abrasive to themselves in the language that goes round and round in their head than they are to other people. So your legacy is not only for others, but it's also for you.
Yeah.
So it's my belief that moment by moment, we make choices. Everything we do is a choice. Even not choosing is a choice. And often when we just let things happen habitually, the impact of that is more far-reaching. 95% of what people think and do is habitual, doesn't cross their conscious mind at all. Absolutely. So being genuine is also about being mindful. It's about being conscious in what you do. And that's the way of an enlightened leader, that you start with yourself. You role model, you're genuine, you're authentic about what you do, and you act as a positive role model for others. And so that's why the name.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, detailing that. That makes so much of sense. And then, as you said, most of us are habitually it's automatic, right? Even a thought process, your self-talk, and that leads us nicely to some of the positive habits that you've had in the past and that you're currently following, habits and routines and rituals that has helped you to be genuinely you, and then act in enlightened leadership, on a daily basis and lead from the front, really. So could you tell us some of the positive habits that you follow currently?
I think be very mindful about your beliefs, recognizing that beliefs are installed when you're young very often and very rarely challenged. Yeah. And they're just a story. Often they've come from a chance remark that somebody's made and said, "Oh, you stupid child," and the person has believed that they're stupid. Yeah. And so then they've looked for evidence and they've interpreted what's gone on as evidence. Yeah. And so that belief becomes installed. So I think one of the things for me, and I think I need to make it clear that, I'm probably a lot older than most of the people who are listening to this. These are not habits that I started with. These are changes that I've made over time, and I wish I'd known at the beginning what I know now, which is one of the reasons why I want to help people short circuit the journey. Right. But do an audit of your beliefs, and if they are empowering you, keep them. If they're not, challenge them. So that would be number one. Number two would be focus on what you can do rather than what you can't. And that for me became very pertinent when I've learned to walk twice as an adult, and had long tracts of time when I've been wheelchair bound. And I still do use a wheelchair if it's a distance, I can only walk short distances. But when you focus on what you can do, rather than bemoaning all of the stuff that you can't, what you do is you open the door to possibilities. So I'd like to share a story with you, if I may, because I think this exemplifies what I mean. And I may have shared the story when I came to speak at the Innovation Centre, but it's such a powerful one. So when I was a head teacher, a principal, I worked for the government as an advisor, and I worked for the National College, and we were a beacon school, so I worked with dozens and dozens of other schools and hundreds of other teachers. And I was in the wheelchair, but people would, I would have the same taxi driver pick me up and take me wherever I was going in the country and bring me back. And it was a way for the school to earn an income to pay for technology and special needs. And I did most of the work in my own time, but had to sometimes go off to visit other places. So fast forward to 2006, I think, early 2006, and I was on a Tony Robbins course, UPW, Unleash the Power Within. I'd already become a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner, and I wanted to see other people using NLP. 10,000 people on the course. I was completely blown away by the sheer volume of people. And in the first morning, Tony Robbins was talking about a course that he was running in California. And I really fancied it. It sounded great. Yeah. But I didn't have an electric travel chair, and I just dismissed it, thinking, I'm never going to be able to do that. But in that, later that day, they did the firework, and I was absolutely determined to do the firework. And I managed, with somebody holding either arm, to walk on hot coals without burning my feet, sat in the wheelchair, and was really ecstatic that I'd managed it. The next guy, double amputee, no legs below the knee, tipped himself up on his hands, and he walked those hot coals on his hands. And in that moment, I recognized that I had been self-limiting. Although people would look at the fact that I ran my school from a wheelchair and say, and did all of those external things and say, you're not self-limiting. But I recognized that fear was holding me back. So I went that evening and I booked my ticket and I booked my flight, went and did the course in California, and then did all of his stuff and became a senior leader. What it proved to me is that we all in some way self-limit. Yeah. And we need to be constantly challenging the limitations that we put on ourselves, because we're the only people that stop us from fulfilling our dream. But you've got to do it consciously, and so those two things tie up. So those two things, I think, are really important. I think another really good habit is a sense of humour, and certainly if you're a wheelchair user in the UK, you need a sense of humour and a sense of proportion, and recognise that change your perspective and you change your reality. And there are loads of other things that I can do, but ultimately, I think, you know, those three things have made the most profound difference to me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins as well, and I'm so thrilled to know that you've been able to experience the firework and literally break through the limiting beliefs. And I mean, of course, the evidence is clear, and then I can see the exuberance and the way you're leading from the front. I've done my UPW virtual though, board breaking, but someday. But I can see the field, the incantations, the shift in perceptions, the shifts in energy, the body, how you're using physiology, the words. Yeah, I'm a practitioner as well, NLP, since about 6-7 years, I guess. So yeah, really wonderful to know that world, how we can literally transform in minutes, rather, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Phobia. So has it been a pivotal moment, the firework, since you've been inspiring people for the last 30 years? Was that a pivotal moment, or was it a gradual?
I think that particular moment when I saw that guy certainly was pivotal, in the sense that whilst everybody else would say to you, you know, you've achieved amazing things given your physicality, what that taught me was, however limited you think you are, you are. However free you think you are, you are. it's the story that changes, and when you change the story, so does the circumstance and the opportunities. And I think that's really important to lead it for leading your own life, but particularly important if you're leading others, that ultimately you have to be the one that's the beacon of light and hope, not a Pollyanna that says it'll be all right and bury your head in the sand, but actually together we can do this. And for me, it's very much about bringing people with you and nurturing and growing them. And so I think for me, it's a mixture. There have been pivotal moments, but ultimately they have come within a stream of development, which is ongoing and will continue. For me, it's a lifelong thing. It's not I'm always learning from the people I meet, from my clients, from new experiences. I'm consistently learning about myself, about the world, and about other people. And I'm thirsty for that knowledge.
Yeah, that's really amazing. What about some of your routines? Do you do journaling? Do you meditate? Do you do cold showers? What are the other things in a 24-hour
I
cycle?
certainly don't do cold showers. Don't do cold. Not me. I do journal. I also meditate, although I struggle to meditate. I'm very good at the to-do list and grey fog when I meditate. I'm much better meditating with others than I am on my own. But for me, the place that I recharge my batteries and that I make real contact with my soul is when I'm in the natural world or in the garden. And although my garden's not big, I spend a lot of time with plants and with the natural world. And for me, that's the conduit really to get to the inner core of myself. And I'm very fortunate in that way. But I think for me, the practice, which is a double-edged sword, has been, when life has been challenging, is to crack on and do something useful. And I can hear my father's voice. I was brought up in that way, that if you're fed up or you're not feeling very well, go and do something useful for somebody else. And whilst that's a really good habit, at the same time, one has to be balanced about it. And there have been times when I'm a recovering workaholic. Work is great pain control, but one has to be very mindful about the physical body and looking after that too. And that's a work in progress. I sometimes get caught up in the enthusiasm and find myself burning the midnight oil again. So yeah, I think for me, taking that time to go and get out into the natural world, and I can just feel everything just go, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and how do you manage to write so many books? I mean, your international bestsellers twice, and then your latest, and one of your books is like Thrive But Not Survive, which is amazing. The title itself, I mean, that's what we all aim to be. Could you tell us a little bit of those two things? How do you find time? Do you have a rhythm, habit of writing every day? And then if you could let us know about Thrive But Not Survive, the book.
Okay. So I've written about 30 books now. Some of them are very conventional in style. So my first two books, How to Kickstart Your Career and Manage Your Staff More Effectively, were both written as my calling card when I left the world of education and went into the world of business.
Right.
And they're how-to journals.
Yeah.
And then I wrote Chariots on Fire, which is my story and how I gave myself the positive advantage.
Right.
But over the next few years, I had recognized that I'd moved on, and that with my clients, no matter whether they came as business clients or personal clients, we covered 5 different elements. And so I wrote the book, Thriving Not Surviving, the 5 Secret Pathways of Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. And the 5 pathways are beliefs. Already talked a little bit about beliefs and how they can empower you or hold you back.
Yeah.
Relationships, And the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have, because every relationship with other people is reflected in the relationship you have with you.
Yes.
The third pathway is your approach to success or failure. And interestingly, I think as many people are fearful of success as are fearful of failure. And some people are fearful of both.
Yes.
And if you are fearful of them, that's going to impact on your choices, your decision making. So the third chapter is all about success and motivation. The fourth chapter is the pathway around managing change and transition. It's one of the three constants in life. With death and taxes, we know that change is going to happen, and yet people struggle with it. And so if you change your relationship with change, you change your way of living, and you become comfortable with uncertainty, then the possibilities open up. And the last pathway is that of purpose and fulfillment. And I've met many people and worked with many people who have all of the trappings of success, but they're not happy.
Yes.
They feel unfulfilled. And I think so for me, the last pathway is that of developing a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And I want to make something clear. Lots of people think purpose is a doing thing. You know, I've got to find my purpose. It's an action. And I've talked about my mission, which is very action based.
Yes.
But interestingly, many people don't know what their divine purpose in life is, and so feel unfulfilled. And for me, the way forward is to live your life with purpose.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether you're doing the washing up or taking the bins out, or you're doing something that you absolutely adore. Do it wholeheartedly and do it with purpose, and your divine purpose will reveal itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know, just to add on to that, you know, my mission in life, or my purpose, my North Star, is to create positive role models. So when I coach my clients, or when I help other people, and when they win, I win in the process, and how amazing that can be. And it's so fulfilling. I mean, it's not about money, it's about transformation and seeing that person bloom into something that they can completely, it's amazingly fulfilling, and it's a win-win combination. I mean, I couldn't be more grateful to what I'm doing now. But you mentioned being a workaholic.
Can I just, before I'd like to pick up on something that you've said, and also talk about the new style of books that I've started to write. The first thing is that you talk about it's not about the money, but interestingly, that if you are working your purpose, there's a divine exchange, which is money.
Yes.
And that money allows you to then help more people, in my opinion.
Yes. Yes.
And so profitability within a business comes, many businesses make the mistake of focusing on the money.
Right.
When the money is a byproduct of leading with enlightenment. And when you get it right, the profits come. And I know I've worked with many, many businesses, and you know, when the leader becomes enlightened, they become profitable. Their staff become engaged and more productive, and more making the business more profitable, because they are engaged in delivering the vision. So I think it's really important for people who are listening to this, don't make it about the money, make it about enlightened leadership, and the money will come. And then the other thing is that over the last 2 years, I've been writing a very different style of book. I talked about journaling at the beginning, and these are books with a very specific theme, with an introduction, and then they are intentional journals or workbooks. So whether it's leadership, or if you're an empath, or lifestyle, you want to be the best version of you, there are journals there that people, so there's not a big read, anything from, from sort of about 20 to 40 pages, but then a journal where there's a prompt, or there's a quote, something to start you off, or something to help you embed the principles that are in the introduction. Because I recognize two things: people are time short, and so haven't got time to read 70,000 words necessarily. but also I want people to embed the principles so that it actually changes their life. Yes. For the better. And so having an intentional journal or intentional workbook that enables you to embed those principles on a daily basis seems to me the way forward. And yeah, there are lots of those on Amazon for people to go and have a look at.
Yes, and absolutely, like you said, money, focusing on money is so transactional in nature, and then what the work that you do is so transformational. It's completely on the polar opposite, 180 degrees. Just to add on to that, don't to the viewers and listeners, don't shy away from asking for money if you're doing amazing work as well. On the flip side of things, you should be proud of the work that you're doing. If you're really transforming people, healing, and then ask for the money, they're more than happy to energy exchange into your account, if you will. But again,
and that divine exchange is important, because it then becomes an equal partnership, not a victim and a savior partnership.
Yeah. Right. Could you tell us some of the bad habits or bad routines that were not serving you really well in the past, and how you overcame them?
Well, certainly being a workaholic, I think, is my major bad habit. And when I was a principal, I was working a 15 or 16-hour day, 5.5 days a week. And it was great in the sense it was great pain control, but it became what I call a strong suit. And a strong suit is when we have an issue or a problem or a challenge, and we do something that works. So we do it more, and we do it more to the point where it becomes destructive. And my health was suffering because I was working so hard. And while I was working, I didn't feel physical pain. But then the minute I stopped working, then the body said, now it's our turn. And the pain would be really challenging, which meant I didn't sleep. So working long hours and not sleeping aren't good for anyone. Interestingly, it was on that course in California that I spoke about before, Anthony Robbins, that we were asked to identify our values. And I'd done value work several times, but health wasn't on my list. Oh. And it was my partner, my buddy on the course, who said, you're in a wheelchair, you've got lots of health issues. Health isn't one of your values. What's going on there? And I recognized that it had to be my top value. And I had to look after my body and listen to it. And that's been quite a journey, because I didn't want to hear what the body had to say. And it's still a work in progress, because there are times when it's so easy to slip back into those habits. So I would say that's bad habit, definitely bad habit number one. I have a very sweet tooth. I love cake, is my favorite food. And so I'm very mindful that sugar isn't good for you. I've done a lot of work with a friend who had cancer, and so I've learned a lot about how sugar creates inflammation, which in turn feeds cancers. And so I am very mindful of limiting. I still do eat cake, but as a treat and not as lunch these days. So, and I'm insatiably curious. Again, it's a double-edged sword. So, I love to find out about people. I'm fascinated about their stories. So I think sometimes I can probably come across as a bit nosy.
Yeah, that's always, I think there's always a book in someone, right? So that's fine. Probably some books will come out of everyone you meet. Is it important to practice enlightened leadership in every walk of life? And we're not talking about corporate, right? We're talking about anyone, a student, a teacher, a mother, anyone really who's alive. So what is a central message that you want to leave it out in terms of habit, cultivating rituals, positivity? What is the one message or key messages that you want to share with the audiences?
You are the common denominator. You take yourself into every situation, every moment of every day. So take radical responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your words. Nobody can make you unhappy unless you choose to allow them to. Nobody can make you do anything unless you choose to do that. So taking radical responsibility for everything shifts you from being a victim into to being a hero. You are the author of your life story. So choose whether you want to be the victim or the hero. Write yourself a great part. That's, I would say. And I think the other part of that is treat yourself as well as you do others.
Yes.
Be your own best friend. So if you've got that voice going on in your head, which is being critical and destructive, do something about it. Reach out and get help. You know, talk to you, talk to me, get some help. Isn't it interesting? People, if their boiler's not working, don't hesitate to get in an engineer.
Yes.
But when their life isn't, or their business isn't running as they want to, they don't reach out for help. And so recognize that, take responsibility, but also recognize that, you know, there is strength in vulnerability. And if you're finding it difficult, then seek help to help you be the best version of you.
Yeah. Do you do any workshops, one-on-one coaching, training, if people are interested in finding you and then getting these things sorted?
So yeah, there's lots of online stuff. If you go to ginagardinerassociates.co.uk or enlightenedleadership.com or genuinely-you.com.
Right.
I also do workshops and I also work one-on-one coaching and mentoring. And if people are interested, probably the easiest thing is to email me at Gina, Gina, at genuinely-you.com, and genuinely-you.com, and I can point people in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will put all the links in the description and wherever on all the social media platforms. And could you tell me what's Thrive Together tribe, that you have, and how people can be part of it?
If you go onto the genuinely-you.com site, you can actually become part of the tribe. There's a free version and there's a paid version. So if you just go onto the website and you can join, and there's lots of resources, and I'm building and creating resources all the time.
Yeah, and she's also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Tons of videos on YouTube as well. So do check that out. And
join the Genuinely You Facebook group, and again, I'm very active in that. I tend to, with a lot of these things, be active in things for a period of time and then move around. But the Genuinely You Facebook group, I'm always active in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. It ties into some of the work that I do as well. Like, as you mentioned in the beginning, a lot of our, thought process is habitual and behavior is habitual. And I focus on, building positive habits by literally changing, rewiring, our nervous system with the beliefs that we mentioned. So amazing to be part of your tribe, and then looking forward to serving you and many more people. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gina. Really, really, really wonderful. Hope you had a fantastic Easter.
Thank you very much. I had a great Easter, and thank you very much for having me on your show. Really do appreciate it.
Have a phenomenal 2022, Gina. We'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Take care.